April 18th, 2025, 0413 a.m., southern corridor of the Red Sea, 65 nautical miles north of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. The night was calm, the sea a sheet of black glass reflecting a thin crescent moon, until the stillness shattered in an instant. Beneath the USS Thomas Hudner, an Arleigh Burke class destroyer on a routine patrol, a thunderous blast erupted. Multiple naval mines detonated in perfect sequence under the port quarter, lifting the 9,200-ton warship slightly from the water before slamming it back down. Red warning lights flashed across the Combat Information Center as klaxons screamed, damage control, port side flooding." Bulkhead doors sealed, sailors rushed to their stations, and engineers scrambled to stabilize power. At that exact moment, 4 fast-moving skiffs shot out from the darkness. These were not ordinary fishermen. The boats were armed with modified RPG-29 launchers and Chinese-made Type 63 rockets, weapons far beyond what ragtag pirates typically wield. Overhead, a small commercial drone hovered, its infrared camera fixed on the crippled destroyer. The question burned immediately. How did a group of so-called pirates manage to deploy military-grade sea mines, let alone coordinate a combined arms assault, in one of the most heavily monitored waterways on the planet? In the next few minutes, you will witness how this ambush unfolded, who was truly behind it, and how the United States answered in a way that shocked the world and changed naval warfare doctrines forever. For the sailors aboard the USS Thomas Hudner, the explosion was only the beginning. As alarms blared, the ship's forward-looking infrared sensors, FLIR, picked up multiple fast contacts approaching from 2 directions. 4 pirate skiffs, their engines screaming at full throttle, surged toward the destroyer's beam. What shocked the operations officer wasn't just their audacity, but their coordination, an attack pattern more typical of trained naval commandos than criminals looking for ransom. One skiff carried a twin-mounted Disa HK heavy machine gun welded to its bow, while another was fitted with improvised rocket tubes, rudimentary but lethal. Their communications were encrypted, piggybacking on a satellite uplink usually reserved for military-grade operations. Overhead, a quadcopter drone circled, transmitting live video to an unknown ground station. Whoever orchestrated this wasn't operating from a beach shack. Below deck, damage control teams reported flooding in 2 compartments but contained it swiftly using automated bilge pumps and temporary bulkhead reinforcements. The destroyer's Aegis combat system automatically shifted to a high-threat profile, activating the AN/SPY-1 radar and defensive countermeasures. In the Combat Information Center, Lieutenant Commander Emily Harper muttered under her breath, "This isn't piracy. This is a playbook." Minutes later, encrypted U.S. intelligence intercepts confirmed unusual traffic bouncing through relay stations in Somalia and Djibouti, suggesting a state-level hand, possibly tied to Iranian Quds Force naval advisors. The mines were later identified as Russian-made MDM-3 bottom mines, the kind designed to cripple frigates or oil tankers. As word of the attack reached the Pentagon, Washington understood this was no isolated incident. Hybrid warfare has officially reached the Red Sea, Admiral Marcus Vance declared in an urgent situation report. What had been dismissed as low-level piracy had suddenly escalated into something far more dangerous. A test of U.S. resolve in one of the world's most strategic waterways. Within seconds of the first shockwave, the USS Thomas Hudner transitioned from wounded to fighting stance. Commander Aaron Mitchell, standing firm on the bridge, barked, "Engage hostile craft, priority 1." The destroyer's Aegis combat system locked onto the approaching skiffs. The Mark 45 5-inch 62 caliber naval gun roared to life, firing high explosive rounds into the lead skiff carrying the DSHK machine gun. The boat erupted into a fireball, debris scattering across the waves. Simultaneously, the ship's Mark 38 Mod 3 chain guns and M2 Browning .50 caliber mounts stitched precise lines of tracer fire into the remaining boats, forcing one to break contact. Above, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter lifted off the flight deck, its rotors slicing through the night. Armed with AGM-114 Hellfire missiles and APKWS laser-guided rockets, the Seahawk established overwatch. In a single pass, it neutralized a skiff attempting to circle toward the ship's stern. The ship's AN/SLQ 32 V6 SEWIP Block 2 electronic warfare system jammed the enemy drone feed, sending it tumbling into the sea. For the first time since the attack began, the tactical advantage shifted. Damage control reported flooding contained. Propulsion and power restored to combat readiness. But even as the last hostile boat retreated under the cover of civilian fishing lanes, one thing was clear. These weren't amateurs. Their escape route had been pre-planned, and their weapons were military grade. Chief Petty Officer Daniel Ruiz summed up the mood below deck. We weren't just hit by pirates. Someone handed them a playbook and the keys to a minefield. By dawn, the USS Thomas Hudner was no longer just a damaged destroyer. It was the center of a fast-moving intelligence operation spanning 3 continents. In Bahrain, the 5th Fleet's Joint Intelligence Center lit up as analysts pored over every sensor log, drone intercept, and radar trace from the night before. Satellite imagery from a KH-11 reconnaissance platform revealed what appeared to be a disguised fishing trawler, seen days earlier deploying objects near the same coordinates where the mines had detonated. Data from the National Security Agency pinpointed encrypted communications hopping through Somali and Yemeni relays, routed via commercial satellites normally used by state-backed operators. It was, as one analyst muttered, piracy with a national defense budget. At the Pentagon, Admiral Marcus Vance briefed senior leaders. This was a hybrid warfare strike: sea mines, armed drones, encrypted command links, coordinated assault craft. No pirate group alone has this capability. Someone wants to challenge freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. Political implications escalated instantly. The State Department called for an emergency UN Security Council session, citing a direct attack on international maritime order. Meanwhile, signals intelligence revealed traces of Iranian Quds Force naval advisors active in Eritrea weeks earlier, fueling suspicion of proxy involvement. To counter future threats, the Navy activated unmanned surface vessels, USVs, from the Sea Hunter program to patrol choke points. Mine-hunting helicopters equipped with ANAQS-24C sonar were scrambled to sweep potential secondary minefields. For cyber defense, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft were tasked to map and jam hostile communication networks linked to the attackers. For the crew aboard Hudner, the atmosphere shifted from fear to resolve. Lieutenant Commander Emily Harper summed it up. They wanted to send a message. We heard it loud and clear. Now it's our turn to answer. 36 hours after the ambush, the Red Sea looked different. U.S. Carrier Strike Group 9, centered around the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, CVN-69, surged into the region at combat readiness. Its arrival was not routine transit. It was a statement. Operation Trident Justice launched at dawn. EA-18 G Growler electronic warfare aircraft took the lead, sweeping the electromagnetic spectrum and severing hostile communications. Simultaneously, P-8A Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft hunted down suspected motherships that had seeded the mines. On the deck of the Eisenhower FA-18 EF, Super Hornets roared skyward, armed with AGM-158 CLRASM long-range anti-ship missiles designed to destroy heavily defended naval targets. Their objective? neutralized 3 vessels identified as pirate command hubs operating under foreign sponsorship. Minutes later, precision strikes lit up the horizon, leaving twisted steel hulls burning on the surface. Meanwhile, SEAL Team 8 executed a high-risk boarding operation on a dhow suspected of coordinating the attack. The raid yielded encrypted laptops, hard drives, and documents tracing financial support through shell companies in Djibouti and offshore accounts linked to Tehran. This wasn't about ransom, it was a proxy strike, one SEAL operator later reported. The Pentagon released a rare, pointed statement. Any group or nation enabling attacks on U.S. naval forces will face immediate, precise, and overwhelming retaliation. NATO allies expressed support, while adversaries condemned American escalation. The symbolism was unmistakable. The United States had turned a minefield trap into an opportunity to demonstrate both conventional strike power and cutting-edge electronic warfare dominance. For the crew of the Hudner, watching from miles away, the retaliation was personal. Chief Petty Officer Daniel Ruiz spoke quietly over the intercom. They thought they could make us bleed. Instead, they woke up the giant. The ambush on the USS Thomas Hudner was more than a tactical incident. It was a strategic wake-up call. For decades, the U.S. Navy had prepared for peer-level conflict, but the Red Sea attack proved that asymmetric hybrid warfare could cripple global shipping lanes with far fewer resources and far less visibility. The Pentagon responded with urgency. Within days, the Navy accelerated deployment of unmanned surface vessels, USVs, armed with advanced sonar arrays to patrol high-risk corridors. Mine countermeasure helicopters, MH-53E, and ANAQS-24C sonar drones began sweeping secondary lanes to prevent future mining attempts. In parallel, research programs for directed energy weapons and AI-enhanced electronic warfare suites were prioritized, aiming to neutralize small craft and drones in seconds rather than minutes. Politically, Washington leveraged the incident to reinforce alliances. NATO partners agreed to increase maritime patrol coverage in the Red Sea, while Japan and Australia pledged logistic support. But adversaries took a different lesson. Even non-state actors with state-level backing could disrupt the world's arteries of commerce. Admiral Marcus Vance captured the gravity of the moment. Sea lanes are the veins of civilization. Whoever controls them controls the heartbeat of the world. That's why we can't afford hesitation. Not for a minute. The Red Sea, long a contested waterway, had just become the testing ground for the future of naval warfare. A future where AI-driven swarms, stealthy sea mines, and proxy warfare would be as dangerous as aircraft carriers and missile cruisers. The strategic message was clear. Freedom of navigation is no longer guaranteed by size alone, but by adaptability, speed, and innovation. 72 hours after the first explosion rocked the USS Thomas Hudner, the Red Sea returned to an uneasy calm. The minefield had been cleared, the pirate command structure dismantled, and the message delivered with unmistakable clarity: no one attacks a U.S. warship without consequence. For the sailors aboard the Hudner, the moment was personal. They had seen how even a small, unconventional force could challenge the world's most advanced navy, and how training, technology, and resolve turned near disaster into victory. Chief Petty Officer Daniel Ruiz put it simply: they came to scare us. Instead, they reminded us why we wear this uniform. Politically, the incident reverberated far beyond the Red Sea. Nations dependent on global trade saw how fragile maritime lifelines could be. Adversaries noted America's ability to respond quickly with precision, while allies took comfort in the speed of U.S. retaliation. Hybrid warfare is no longer hypothetical. It is here, it is real, and it can strike anywhere. But the United States also showed the world something else. Adaptability, innovation, and sheer determination still win battles. If you believe maritime freedom is essential, if you value the men and women who defend it every day, share this story, subscribe, and join us as we uncover more untold truths of modern warfare.